As artistic director, I was really interested in us doing as many of the history plays as part of our canon in a decade, where we're doing the entire Shakespeare canon over 10 years. I really wanted to do as many of the history plays as we could in chronological order of the kings. And so doing Richard II, of course, opens the door to then doing the Henry IVs, Henry V, the Henry VIs, right all the way to Richard III in chronological order. And I think the festival has done that in the past, although it's been a long time since the festival has done that. And I just think it's one of those thrilling things that we can do as a large rep company with a large percentage of our audience that returns every year. I think we can give that gift both to our actors and to the audience.
Because some of the actors in Richard II will then go on into the Henry IVs.
That's exactly
playing those same characters.
That's the plan.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think it was, since the previous Richard II was outdoors and the Elizabethan, I think you were very interested in doing it in the Thomas and just doing a sort of more intimately scaled production. And certainly as an actor, you make different choices depending on the space. And the Thomas is just, I think well, I shouldn't say it's my favorite, but it probably is my favorite because you can make very private choices, intimate choices, both vocally and emotionally in that space that you just can't do outdoors or even in the Bomer just because you have to scale it in a larger way. So, and there's something about this play, I think, at this particular time, the intimacy of it that just felt right. As you said, in an election year, looking at a play that is very much about power and how people wear the mantle of power and being able to see what that does to people in an inner core kind of way, in addition to the machinations of the politics of the piece, but what it does on an intimate level, I think appealed to you as a director, and certainly appealed, I think, to both of us as we looked at it.
I have never directed a Shakespeare history play. I've been scared of them because I just have had trouble. I've always admired them when I've read them, when I've seen them produced, but in terms of that inner pull, like what would I have to bring as an artist, I've worried about that. And I think one of the things that really excites me about doing Richard II and the Thomas is that it's really a family play, right? It looks at the politics of a nation, and the events are world-shaking and world-affecting, but it's Richard and his cousins and his uncles, and it's so much a family play. And I think by doing it in the Thomas, by doing it with a smaller cast, we're closer, and it foregrounds the familiar relationships, and it forces us to focus in a way on a smaller group of characters just by nature of doing it with a smaller cast. And we see them in a more intimate way. So I'm really excited as a director to be working on the first history play I've directed, Shakespeare history play, in the intimacy of the Thomas for all those reasons. It's the production is going to be contemporary. It'll be set in, of course, in its setting of England, but it's a fictional contemporary England. That Richard and Richard is the king, and I mean the story is the story, but I think we're very excited, and the design team, we have an incredible design team, and I think we're all excited to dig into the relationships in the play through a contemporary lens.
This is my second encounter with him. I played him in college many years ago.
He was really good.
I
saw it
many years ago, and it quickly became one of my favorite roles that I've done. I just love how it's so much the politics of the piece is watching someone with ultimate and absolute power descend, and at the same time it's watching a human being sort of ascend and learn what it is actually to be human. While he has everything stripped away from him, and of course that's sort of that's catnip to an actor. I'm really excited to work with this cast. Jeff King, who plays Bolingbroke, and I have worked together as director and actor and have acted together, and it's, I just he's just a dream to work with, and I'm thrilled to get into the meat of that relationship, the Richard Bolingbroke relationship. And as Bill said, it is really, as we worked on the script, the text, realizing how much it is about family, and that these guys they grew up together, they are first cousins. It's the uncle who was the regent when Richard was ascended the throne and he was a child. It's like a family drama, writ large on this huge historic canvas. So yeah, I'm terrified in all the right ways about approaching the role. And the obviously the famous thing about the play is the language. It's written in verse, and it's just,
I think it's the only play that's entirely in verse.
Yeah, so there's no prose scenes, and that is daunting and thrilling. And some of these arias that Shakespeare has written for Richard and for Bolingbroke, and it just doesn't get any more glorious than that. To get those words in your mouth and in your heart is just a gift. So I'm very excited.
I'm excited to work with Chris on this role. Chris and I have worked together a lot over 30 years, and we've worked together when Chris played Hamlet, when Chris played Mercutio, when Chris played Lady Macbeth, when Chris played Rosalind, when Chris played both Viola and Sebastian. So we've worked together on a lot of Shakespeare, but not here in Ashland. We did MMC and All the Way together in Ashland as director and actor, and that's it. So for us to be able to dig back into that history of collaborating together on a Shakespeare play, but here in the context of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, with all of our incredible colleagues and with the best audience in the world, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think for an audience to see the first play, in the history, if you do them in chronological order, it's just thrilling to see where it all started and where for this family and the cousins and generations of this family, and for this nation, how much the convulsions echo down the generations and down the centuries because of these events which started, in Shakespeare's world in this play. They started way back in the real history, but in Shakespeare's history plays, it starts here with Richard II. And, to be able to get in on the ground floor and see how that building gets built, I think is a thrilling thing for audiences and for lovers of this man's words.